Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of the Shifting Perceptions podcast. This is Chelsea Alders. This week we got to chat with competitive surfer and big wave surfer Torrey Meister. We've been looking forward to this one for a while. One, because there is absolutely no part of my brain that can imagine going over the top of a 60-foot wave on a piece of fiberglass. But two, I've been excited to ask all the questions you would want to ask a big wave surfer. Like, what is on your mind right before you drop in? Do you ever hesitate? Do you worry about dying? Do you worry about sharks? How do you find the courage to go back after some of your major injuries? And from the mom side of me, how does your mom handle this lifestyle? We met Torrey this past summer when he came by our house with our favorite Sanuk rep, Adam Walker. I didn't know who he was at the time, but I adored his quiet demeanor and most of all, the way he treated my kids. They played magnet blocks for an hour and my 3-year-olds taught him how to build and smash. Later that same night, we went to an event to watch a surf film he was in, and it was a strange moment, realizing this guy charging pipeline in Jaws was the same guy that had been playing toys and talking about his family in my living room. I realized in my head these guys are larger than life, and when I saw such a calm family side to Torrey, I really needed to start putting the puzzle together. We finally got to Torrey's relationship to the ocean, and we somehow found a relatable side to surfing 40 to 60-foot waves. I knew it was in there somewhere. Torrey is humble, loving, one of a kind, and I hope we got to all the questions you would want to ask a big wave surfer.
Hey everyone, this is Jay Alders. If you haven't done so already, may I ask you to please click subscribe on your podcast player now. So when I'm not podcasting, I am an artist, and just on time for the spring and summer, I have liquidated prices on certain select items that I have very few left of. So t-shirts, some hats that you can get at prices up to, I believe it's 65 or 70% off some of these items. If you go to jalders.com/sale, you can get first dibs on what's left before they are sold out and gone forever. So if you guys can follow us online, we'd love to keep in touch with you guys. Our show can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So can Chelsea and I. So my social media, if you look up at Jay Alders or Jay Alders, you'll find me on every social media. Chelsea, you could find at ommamasdoulas.com. She is a birth doula. You could also follow her on Instagram at Chelsea Alders or at ommamasdoulas. We absolutely love hearing from you guys. If you have comments or questions, please shoot them to us on social media or on shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. We have all the show notes and links for Torrey's episode on there, so please check that out. Also, while you are listening, it would be an awesome idea to go on Torrey's Instagram and kind of scroll through and see some of the insane surfing that he's doing. If you go on Instagram and go look up Torrey Meister, Torrey, Meister is spelled Meister, just check out what he's doing. It's unbelievable.
Let's jump in.
Hey, what's up, Jay? How are you, man?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Chelsea? How's it going?
Good. How's your dog?
She's hanging in there. Still kind of waiting to see.
What's the prognosis? Is she going to be all right?
Well, she, hopefully, I mean, she's doing better. Her, oh man, it's been like pretty much, she's been at the vet for about a week now.
Oh,
so
God.
so it's been pretty heavy. She has like this immune system disease where I think it's the red blood cells that are attacking the white blood cells, and it's causing her not to clot, and she's like having extreme internal bleeding.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was just like extreme amounts of blood and bleeding, and she was kind of having all these bruisings everywhere. And so when we first brought her in, they found out what it was. They gave her some heavy like antibiotics, and I think one of them was like a gnarly steroid, and pretty much what it does is reboots the whole immune system.
Okay, yeah.
So the only problem with that is that her platelet count is, she's losing so much blood because she has such extreme internal bleeding. So her count is really low, and her red blood cell count is really low, and this steroid and this antibiotic take about 3 to 5 days to kick in.
Okay, yeah.
So once it gets, under 20% on the count, they have to give her blood transfusions. So that was kind of something that she's had 3 now. And, and they're just kind of waiting for it to be stable. And last night it was stable for about 24 hours, which is great news.
Yeah.
And it was, we were really stoked on that. And it was actually her count was going up and she was doing better. Her red blood cell count was going up as well. And this morning she just kind of had some trouble breathing. Aww. And her gums were really pale. And so we brought her back, and now it looks, they're doing x-rays on her chest right now, on her lungs, because she might have picked up ammonia or have a blood clot or something. Yeah. So we just kind of been living at the vet the last week and a half or so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But she's still kicking and she's still in good spirits. And they said it's going to take around 6 months to even to get her completely back to normal.
Wow.
So,
jeez. Sorry you're going through that. Are you good to talk?
Okay, cool.
You're in good spirits with the dog stuff? You can zone out for a few?
Yes, for sure. I'm good.
Cool.
So what town do you live in, Torrey? Because I don't know.
Well, I kind of bounce around a lot, but during this time of year, spring and summer, I live in California, in Costa Mesa.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we actually kind of just moved here in August, and we lived in San Diego for about 7 years before that. And so we made the move last year, and now we're living in the OC. How are you guys doing, by the way? It's been a while.
We're doing
How's
well,
everything?
man.
How's the kids?
Thanks for asking. The kids are doing great. And
boys
awesome.
are turning 4 next week, so we're just getting excited for a big Paw Patrol party and, doing
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. 4. Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
You're actually in our minds quite often, because your poster is like the only one in all of their rooms. They have the signed posters that you gave them like next to each other. So there's like the 2 of the exact same poster like on their wall.
That's so awesome. Love that. That's cool. Have they been climbing the rock wall?
Yes, of course.
Totally.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
Yeah. They don't know.
That's awesome, man.
They're getting skateboards for their birthday, and we're excited to get them out in the water in the summer.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Summer's right around the corner here, dude. So they're gonna be amped.
Yeah. Let's start here. Let's start like how you got to where you are. I was diving into a Torrey Meister wormhole before we talked, looking at all the crazy stuff you're doing, and I was thinking back to Chelsea and I recently watched that documentary Momentum Generation, which was sick. And after watching that, I sort of had the thought that every insanely talented surfer has a screwed up family, and it seems like quite the opposite with you. It seems like you have a really good family upbringing. It seems like you have good values. Can you talk about how you grew up and how that maybe contributed to what you're doing now?
Oh yeah, of course. My parents are both very supportive on my surfing, and it was kind of an easy route, because for me, I was, all I wanted to do was be in the ocean and be in the water. And when I found out that pro surfing was actually something you could do for a living, I was like, it was kind of a no-brainer. And that being said, when I was a kid, I could swim before I could even walk. And so we had this little pool area at my house, and I would just, the first thing I do is jump in the water and swim around. And that's before I could even stand on land. So I have always had this weird connection with the water and the ocean and that. And then my dad, he surfed, and his story is pretty funny, because he's from Texas, and that's where he learned to surf.
Oh man, that's like straight out of like the North Shore movie, like Rick Kane from Arizona.
Yeah, it's very similar. And he actually he played football in high school, and so he was pretty athletic. And he the way he started surfing is he actually had some tryouts for a college, and he actually got hurt, and I think he was a little bummed, because football was kind of his dream. And one of his friends was like, "Hey, let's go surfing. You might want to go to the beach and try it out." He's like, "Surfing? Like, what's that?" And anyway, so long story short, he ended up going surfing in Galveston for the first time, and just became hooked. And he moved to California, and he started building houses, and now he's a contractor. But pretty much surfing kind of, I don't know, in a way, it just became his life and something he lived for and something he had to do all the time. And it was pretty funny. He was definitely one of those guys that lived in San Diego and was going to, Baja every weekend and working when he can just to get enough money to go surfing and hang out in Mexico and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty funny. He just had this crazy love for it. And that's when he met my mom. And my mom's actually from Michigan,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
pretty opposite too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's an acupuncturist, and they met in Southern California, actually, in Encinitas, kind of where I used to live last year. And I don't know, I guess they hit it off and they had me. But yeah, no, they've been really supportive and awesome. And we did have a pretty gnarly divorce when I was 8 years old, so there was some separation there. But now my parents have definitely kept it together and always supported me and surfing and everything I do in my life. So yeah, I owe everything to them.
That's awesome. Well, so are you an only child? Is it just you?
Yes, I was an only child. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when my parents divorced, they married other people, and my dad, I have a brother and a sister now on my dad's side.
Okay, that's well. So, your like earliest memories surfing with your dad? I assume he had you in the water as quickly as possible.
Yeah, he did for sure. We moved. So I was born in California, actually, in Oceanside, and then we moved to the North Shore. And yeah, I mean, some of my earliest memories of surfing were at Sunset Beach with floaties on my
Wow.
arms, and yeah, being on the nose of my dad's board. And I believe I was around 3 years old. So yeah, it was pretty funny. He would take me out there, and I think it made my mom super nervous,
Oh,
but
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I never felt scared when we got pounded or I got away from my dad. It was never like a sense of fear that came over me when I was that age. It was always kind of like it had this weird second, almost like home, or just a calm to it that when I was underwater or getting pounded by a wave, I never felt like I was gonna die. I just felt good.
Yeah.
Like a weird calm sensation. I felt like I just remember it even as an early age, because I'll remember this the rest of my life. But me and my dad were out at Sunset Point, and we were on a wave together, and I fell off, and he kind of lost me for a second, and I remember my mom freaking out. And when we went in, and I was fine, and my mom was a little obviously upset. And I remember just like, I don't know how I remember this, but I remember just telling my mom, "It's okay, I felt fine. Like it was okay." And I was like 3.5 years old, 4 years
Wow.
old, like telling my mom, "No, it was cool. Like it was fun. Like I felt good. That was minor. I came right up, and I had my floaties. I'm good." Like I don't know. I just never felt like it. Um, but I always felt like some kind of peace in
Yeah.
under the water and surfing and being in the ocean. I just always gave me a sense of peace.
Well, so does that carry through? Like, I'm sure you've had close calls since then. Like, do you have those moments where you actually have that fear, or does that not exist? Like, you feel like the ocean's going to take care of you?
No, I've definitely had that fear for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, unfortunately we grow up and we hear about all these horrible stories, and you're always like, oh, it could happen to me. If we
Yeah.
just stayed kids at heart, I don't think we'd ever be scared of anything.
I know, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah, I don't know either.
Torrey, so growing up where you did in Hawaii, I would imagine even if you started out with no fear, you're constantly around situations where people are doing, death-defying things. They're going out when in the winter swells. They're like charging, huge, massive waves. You must have, lost people along the way, or have known people who have perished along the way. Is that sort of when some of the fears set in, or was it a personal experience? Like, do you remember the first moments where you kind of checked yourself, like, all right, I really have to kind of be careful out here?
I mean, yeah, obviously when you have someone pass away, that really checks you. you put yourself in these situations with these kind of waves, like it's almost, it's, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a matter of time before, something bad happens or you have a really bad fall. And, it definitely checks you. The ocean is always going to tell you who's boss. And I don't know. I guess from a young age, I've always just had a huge respect for the ocean and stuff. And, I think when I was young, I obviously didn't know how, dangerous it was. And, I guess that sense of fear wasn't really pushed into me until I, started surfing bigger waves and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, I've kind of had both. I've had situations where I've been underwater for a really long time and kind of thought to myself, like, hey, this might be it. Like, this could be the end. Or, you feel your chest contracting and you're still not coming up, and you're swimming up and you're like, where's the surface at? And, those thoughts definitely go through your mind. It's kind of a slowly deep spiraling circle of, this might be it. And, but one thing I've always learned when you get pounded is just to just kind of black out, and kind of let the wave do its thing, especially obviously in the bigger stuff. Like, you have absolutely no control of what's happening, when you get pounded by a wave at Jaws, and it just ragdolls you, and it feels like, it wants to rip every limb off that you have. And, when you find a piece in the chaos somehow, you know, scientifically, you'll hold your breath longer because you're not struggling as much,
Yeah.
and there's less oxygen being used. But on a mental note, I feel like when I know something super heavy that's going to happen, I just say a prayer, and I just let the rest happen. And yeah, I mean, you're going to have those close calls that are always going to put you in check, and that's just the ocean humbling you. And if you really love it, you just thrive and live for that feeling. And you know, there's a lot of things in life that kind of can't really compare to that feeling. And I don't know. I guess that's what keeps you coming back for more. Even though it kind of sounds crazy.
No, so
Seeing.
all I keep hearing, Tori, is like I remember when I first started dating Jay and he'd be surfing, I would just say, I'm so glad you're not a big wave surfer. Like, it terrifies me. But he would always say, like, I'm so grateful that I don't worry about dying every time I pick up a paintbrush.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way being
Yeah.
the father of my children. But it's just, I feel like, do you see that there's like a side to that like something chose you? Like, is there something bigger there for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't, yeah, I definitely feel like, yeah, huh. I mean, on a spiritual note, I definitely feel like there was, something that I was created in a certain way and wired a certain way that makes me want to do these things for some reason. And I mean, obviously I have normal thoughts as well, like sometimes you feel selfish, kind of going and chasing after these things that could easily kill you, like, I mean, I have a beautiful family and a beautiful girlfriend and, a dog. And obviously I don't want to leave that. And so those kind of things definitely go through my mind where I feel like I'm being selfish sometimes. But at the same time, like, I'm definitely a happier person when I'm doing those things that, I don't know, I guess I feel more alive when I'm doing things that might kill me for some reason. Just
Yeah.
in surfing, not in all things, but
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, and that just makes me happier. And you know, yeah, big wave surfing's kind of been a funny thing for me. It was never like a full focus when I, you know, started surfing. I mean, I always liked bigger waves and stuff, but it was never what I really planned on doing. I wanted to, make the CT and go for world titles and stuff like that. And then, kind of going to Maui and surfing Jaws for the first time and doing all these things, I just like enjoy this way more than I do competing sometimes. Like right now, this feels right. And I still do love competing, So I think there's still, there's still a lot of passion there. And I still feel like there's a calling there for sure. But I don't know, the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, big wave surfing is kind of just all I cared about. At least Jaws. Like, if there's a solid Jaws, like the only thing I care about is getting there
God,
at
so
that time.
crazy. I mean, I
And
like that. I
yeah,
have such respect for that. Well, so just to, I want to sort of put in perspective since, a lot of our audience is like creatives, people that maybe are living a lifestyle that's not, the norm, 9 to 5 or whatever, but they might not be surfers. So I want to talk a little bit about like that process of like stalking the wave because I think this is so fascinating. Like, talk about your life when like you're waiting for Jaws. Like, are you in California and you're going to cut and run? Are you flying to Tahiti? Like, what are you doing on your day to day with tracking waves?
well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I'm not the best wave tracker.
Okay.
I'm getting better, but yeah. So like I said, I used to compete a lot, and you would never have to really track waves because the contests were on those dates, and what you got is what was there is what you got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you check a forecast to see if there's going to be waves to see what boards you're going to bring, but that was about it. But yeah, as far as like Hawaii forecasting and all that kind of stuff, like I've always kind of checked that as a kid, like knowing the directions for pipe and the winds and all that. But lately, like with you know now the horizons kind of expanded as far as chasing after bigger waves, and now I'm checking forecasts in like Tahiti or Ireland or Portugal or just kind of all these different places, and you really just have to know when these waves only get special at a certain time. Mavericks is another one that really started to focus on as well. And yeah, so pretty much you'll just be having a normal day, and you have a sip of coffee in the morning, you look at it, look at a website, and you're like, oh whoa, look at this big old thing coming, what's this gonna do? And then you start checking it, and it starts getting more and more real as it kind of comes closer to the waves that you're thinking about going to. And then yeah, and then you kind of just pull the trigger last second. It's really finicky, and I'm sure it's really tough on the people in my life because we'll be pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I think a normal day for you is different than most people listening, perhaps.
Yeah, but that's how quickly it happens. And it's pretty funny, like sometimes I won't be on it, and I'll get a text from one of my friends, "You see this thing coming to Mavs?" Dang, wow, this looks kind of good. And like we kind of have like a group of friends that we kind of stay up with it, and we have friends that are from those places as well, so that always helps to kind of get that local knowledge. you know um Jaws is a really finicky one, just because the wind factor is it's just really hard to get it glassy, because it's almost never glassy on that side of the island in Maui. So that was always a tough one. And Mavericks too, they all just have certain wind directions and swell directions that get in there or they don't. And um yeah, I guess it's just going there and showing up and getting skunked or scoring and remembering those angles and wind directions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I said, my friends help me a lot when it comes to picking a swell, and we help each other out if if one of us has been there more than the other, or whatever. So yeah, that it helps to have good friends. It's
That's
big. That's
awesome.
the coolest thing about big wave surfing is and in competitive surfing, small waves, and the QS and the CT, and it's all just you. It really just relies on you. I mean, you do have a team of coaches, and you have a team that helps you out, but at the end of the day, it just kind of comes down to you. And in big wave surfing, like I have to have one of my friends help me put on my inflation vest because I can't get it on myself. Like it's little things like that where it does take a team. And if you go down on a big wave, you want your best friend on a ski or someone who really knows what they're doing on a ski come rescue you. And I think that's really cool. I think that's something that's way different than any part of surfing.
Yeah, it's
That's only in big
amazing.
wave surfing.
Well, so just because I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, like how big have you caught Jaws? Like what made you get obsessed with it? How big has it been for you?
Definitely the biggest. I mean, the biggest year that we've had I felt like since I started surfing jaws was the El Nino year of 15 and 16.
Okay.
That was just kind of a magical year, and that was kind of the first year I really started going to Maui. I'd been there before, and surfed jaws once before that, and towed it before that as well. But I was, like I said, I was never like gung ho big wave surfer. Like I was kind of like, oh, just do it for fun, and get a little rush, and I have one big wave board, and that was cool, and be done with it, and back to competing. But that year I actually was coming back from a couple probably the heaviest injuries I ever had in my life. I um I'd ruptured my spleen the year before at backdoor, so I had a pretty significant injury, and it was pretty much the closest I'd been to dying. And then I came back from that, and right after that, I hurt my hip and ended up getting hip surgery. So I was kind of coming back from both of those injuries, and that was a pretty long, drawn out injury. I think it was around 3 months, and so I started surfing again on the hips, and then it was around 2 months for the spleen. So I was out for a lot of 14 and 15. And I just remember kind of checking myself and being like, I believe I was 27 years old at the time, and I was like, is this the kind of surfing that I want to do? Like, is this, if it ended tomorrow, am I going to be bummed that I didn't go and surf bigger waves or try other things in surfing? And I think I would have been, personally. And so, I always wanted to chase after jaws. I'm obsessed with the wave, the way that Albie and Shane Dorian and Kai Lenny and Billy and all these guys surf it is just the way those guys surf those waves, and just how crazy and big, and how you can just pull into a wave that's 40 or 60 foot. I just was like, dude, that just looks like the coolest rush ever. Like, I want to get barrel to jaws. Like, that's what I want to do.
Oh my God.
And so when I came back from that injury, I competed a little bit, and that just happened to kind of fall into this year. We call it the El Nino, and it doesn't happen very often, but pretty much it's just big, huge storms that come in and create tons and tons of big waves, and really light winds is usually what happens. So that's exactly what you want for jaws, is really huge swells and super light winds. And man, that year was just incredible. I mean, they ran the contest, and it was okay for the contest. And then in January, it was just swell after swell after swell. And it kind of started off with, I don't know if you guys remember that world record wave by Aaron Gold that he got. That was kind of like the first swell that I went over
Yeah,
for.
well, I just remember seeing it everywhere. It was just one of those.
Yeah, it was kind of everywhere, and it was just a massive wave. And I remember just sitting out there going, like, seeing these gigantic waves barrel and spit, and I was like, this is the most incredible thing in surfing.
Oh my God. So how
And
big was it when you rode it that year?
that was definitely the biggest swell of that. So I mean, the waves were, well, I think Aaron Gold's wave was recorded at around 65
Jeez.
feet or something, or 64 feet or something in there. It was, and so, and there was waves that were bigger that day for sure. That was a really big wave. I mean, that was a set wave for sure, but there's a lot.
Is that something you would charge? Or like, do you have a cap on what you're comfortable with?
Yeah, like what's the biggest you would do? Like, would you stop or would you just try it if it was...
I don't know. I mean, I think if I was in the spot, I want to tell myself that I would go.
You do. So there's like no limit in your head.
There's no limit.
No, that's a funny thing about like big wave surfing, is that like you don't really know. I mean, obviously like when a set's coming or whatever, but you don't really know how big a wave is until you see the footage of it. It's kind of funny. It's just so big, and it's hard to tell, like, if that was a huge one or if that was a medium one, or it's just funny. And that day in particular, I mean, there was waves. The inside waves were 20 feet, so every wave you went on was huge, and that was a small wave. That day was a 20-foot wave. So yeah, you definitely don't look at a wave and be like, oh, this is like, that looks around 60 feet. I'm not going to do that. That's
Yeah.
a cap.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like every big wave guy, if they're in the spot and they feel like they can go and they're feeling good, that they're going to try. And
So
yeah, I don't know if it's funny. I don't think there's much of a limit as far as that goes. You kind of just are in the moment, and if it happens, it happens, and hopefully you just make it.
So I want to ask you that because I've always wondered this with big wave surfing. Like it's different because when small waves, you'll see like 10 guys paddling forward like crazy and like one gets it and then everyone kind of pulls back or, whatever. But with those waves, like, okay, so this is sort of more of like the spiritual side of it, but like, do you sort of feel like a pull? Like the minute you're pulling in, like you're kind of like, I shouldn't do this? Or is it always like just charge? Like, do you ever have a hesitation? Or does a hesitation mean you're dead? Is that just like you don't do that?
uh, you try not to hesitate for
Okay.
sure. But you got to be realistic as well, So if you're too deep or too far out or too, in the lip or whatever, there's always things that you have to read and know, and that just takes experience and years of making mistakes. And even in small waves, like I think small waves help your big wave surfing a lot because it's still surfing, and still reading a wave. The wave's bigger, obviously, but to surf a wave well, it takes years and years of timing and figuring it. And wave knowledge in big wave surfing is so um important. It's crazy. Like it's probably the most important thing. I mean, skill too, but if you have wave knowledge and you know which waves are good, and I mean, because you never really know. I mean, honestly, like you look at a wave and you're like, I think it's going to do this, and I think I'm going to do that, and and sometimes it just does a complete opposite of what you're going to think. So yeah, it's just wave knowledge. And as far as hesitation goes, I mean, I think in the back of our mind, we all have a little bit of hesitation, but it is seriously like a split second of making a decision. So at that split second time, if you have any hesitation, you probably will fall, or
Yeah.
you probably won't get into it or whatever. And I don't know, all the biggest and worst wipeouts I've had, I just remember like thinking back on them, and I'm like, what was I thinking here? Like, what was going through my mind? And it's always been hesitation, like, and it wasn't necessarily the biggest waves that there was hesitation, but it was always like when I ruptured my spleen, I remember the wave, perfectly. And I remember looking at it and going, oh, this wave might not be good. It kind of has like this, it's kind of standing up this way. It could be good. Oh, the wind's a little bit onshore. And that's kind of like, and then I remember, whatever, I'll go. And that was kind of um, like when I think back on that, I was like, well, man, if I would have just gone, I wouldn't have been so late and I wouldn't have landed on my spleen and, hit the water so hard or whatever. I think if I would have rather just committed and gone, it would have been better. But at the same time, like it's a fine line. Like you can't just go on a super stupid wave and, think oh, I'm not hesitating. I'm going. It doesn't matter. And
Right.
that's
With
a
no
good way to
instincts
kill yourself.
kicking in.
But
Yeah.
yeah, my when I hesitate the most is when I usually fail the hardest. Is what I've learned, and it's something I'm trying to work on. But I got to be smart as well. So, but on the split second, that split second, I think when you're like, I feel good. This is on. I feel like I'm in the spot. I'm under it. This is, you know, there's no hesitation. It's almost like it goes blank, and you're just 100% focused on making the wave. Yeah, but yeah, it is weird. Hesitation can be it can save you, and it can be your worst nightmare too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the only thing that I ever have to like compare to that is just with like skiing. Like you feel like sometimes at the top of the hill, you're like, I'm like tired. Maybe I shouldn't go. And then that's always when you get hurt. Like when your instincts are chiming in, but you're not listening to them. It's like the only time that,
Hmm.
you know.
For sure, yeah, it's definitely the same feeling for sure. And it's funny though, like one thing that watching Shane surf Jaws, I remember the first time, and it was actually that same day that Aaron Gold got that. It was the same swell that I went for, that really huge one that Aaron Gold got, that crazy wave. I remember, I mean, to me, Shane's the best guy out there, and I just remember being blown away on how he did hesitate. Like he knew when a good wave was coming, and when he would even be like, I remember watching him paddle into one, and I was, oh, he looked a little too far out, and he just absolutely put his head down and paddled so hard where most guys would be like, oh, I'm a little bit on top of this thing, I'm going to pull back. But he was like, no, he knew it was a good wave, and it was a good wave. And he, even though he wasn't exactly in the spot, he paddled and, pushed through the lip that was trying to take him on the backside of the wave and pushed right through it and made the wave. And I was just like, dang, like that's the difference right there. Like that's, there was no hesitation. He knew exactly what he wanted. That wave was in the exact place that he wanted to catch it at. Even though he wasn't particularly in the best spot to go on it, he made sure he went. And he just knew, and that's just knowledge.
Where would you say your biggest payoff is with your surfing? Are you like with the big waves? I would imagine that just getting a bigger and bigger wave, I'd imagine, is a big part of it. And then with competitive surfing, it's more about style and catching errors and landing a string of maneuvers. And with where for you do you get the biggest payout? Is it the style? Is it the size of the wave? Is it the feeling? What gives you like the most juice?
Oh, the feeling for sure, definitely. When you kind of have that, it's just like anything in life. You have a dream or a certain wave or a contest or something that you want to accomplish, and when you do it, it just feels so sweet. And it I think that's kind of what keeps you coming back for more, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because in surfing there's so many different avenues that you can take, which is the coolest thing about surfing, I think, is you can do the competitive thing, you can just be a strictly free surfer, you could do the big wave thing, you can do all of them, and or you could do one and be great at one of them and make a living at doing that. Whereas like most sports, like football or something, you have to be a great receiver or a great quarterback. It's just playing the game that matters.
Yeah.
Which I love football, by the way. It's like one of my favorite sports in the world to watch. But
you're a Cowboys fan. I think I read,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Oh man, my dad just turned the podcast off for the record.
Yeah, that's usually what happens when people hear that. But anyway, so that's something that can be, really, that's what I think is really cool about surfing. At the same time, it can be as confusing as heck because, if you're like me, you kind of want to do it all. And, you can chase your tail around a lot, trying to go after a lot of different things, where if you focus on one specifically, sometimes it works out better. But I don't know. I guess coming back to your question, I find satisfaction in kind of all angles of surfing, like when I have a good heat or whatever, it feels really good, or I win a contest. And when I, probably competitive surfing is pretty much, the reason I have a sponsor right now is, because in, was it 2013, O'Neill put up this specialty contest that, winner take all. And it was like, you get a sponsorship from O'Neill for a year and you get to go chase the QS and they would pay for it. I think the purse was like 50 grand, which is, enough to go and chase after it. And, I didn't have a sponsor for 3 years before that. So I was just, pretty much not competing. And, I actually was still trying to do the QS because I was still in the top 100. So I could still get into the major events. And I was just, putting myself in a hole as far financially and credit card debt goes. And I ended up doing that event and I ended up winning that event. And I've been with O'Neill for 5 years now. And it's, so I owe a lot to competitive surfing, and I still get the same, kind of buzz that I get when I catch a big wave or whatever. So I don't know. All avenues of surfing bring me a lot of pleasure, and I get just as stoked at doing a good air than I do on getting a really good wave at pipe or something like that. So yeah, I guess I just love surfing. I'm just a surf turkey.
There's probably a lot of people listening that have some version of surfing for them. If they don't surf themselves, maybe it's music or art or some sort of a passion that on one level seems like completely illogical to chase and put everything into. And then I'm listening to you put yourself in credit card debt and travel around the world and do all these things just to make that feeling happen. That's incredible. Can you talk a little bit about the business side of it? Because you touched upon it a little. It's clearly not the easiest thing to make a living from. Can you talk about what that takes and maybe some of the harder parts of it that people wouldn't really even think about, like some things that wouldn't even be on your radar thinking about what it's like to be a pro surfer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what it comes down to is love, and when you really love something, it works out. And I've always kind of told myself that, like don't focus on the money as much. Don't focus on, the money you're losing as well, and just do it for the love. Like, you love surfing, you'd be doing this no matter what. Even if you didn't have a sponsor, or even if it wasn't your job, you'd still be doing it. So I guess, like, I mean, it kind of sounds, I guess, a little funny, but it really just comes down to how much you love it, and because when you love something so much, you're going to work at it as hard as you can, and when you work at something really hard, you're going to accomplish stuff. And when you love doing what you're doing and working hard, it's a perfect recipe for success. And yeah, and obviously I've been on the spectrum of being super broke and you know not having much money and still kind of chasing after it, and kind of telling myself, like, well, I still love this, but this is not financially making any sense. And like, as far as when I was explaining the contest to you earlier, like that year was probably going to be my last year of kind of chasing it. I'd still do some events here in California, but I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm 30 grand in debt. I don't even think I make 30 grand in a year unless I, do really well in these contests. And this isn't, making sense. So let's just grind it out this last year and see what happens. And surfing or has had a way of kind of coming back, and I ended up winning that contest. And so it's kind of funny how it's just full circle. Like, life is just funny like that. Just when you think you're down, God blesses you with something. Or it's just funny how that seems to work. But yeah, I guess what it ultimately comes down to is the love, and not the money. Because once you start worrying about the money, then you're not really focusing on what you love doing as much, and I feel like money comes, with money comes as much as you love what you're doing, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say, I guess.
I mean, there's like no better lesson than that for sure. Well, I have a question on that same note. Like, I know obviously that you can win contests and that's how you win money and the sponsorships, but did you have people you looked up to that were like, this is the clear path? Like, this is what you have to do? Or are you just like, I'm just going to keep surfing and see what happens?
I mean, no, I've definitely had a lot of people that I look up to. Um, like, well, Shane Dorian, that whole, like, we kind of touched on the momentum generation, all those guys
Yeah.
were, I was a Grom when all that kind of stuff was going on, the momentum movies, and
Yeah.
Taylor Steele, Shane Dorian, and Kelly, and all those guys were my favorite surfers. And so I really looked up to them. And Shane Dorian, he's been a huge idol of mine. He's from where I'm from, the Big Island, and he grew up surfing the same way, that I grew up surfing. So obviously he's, to see him do it and be so successful at it, and just to see what he accomplished, it makes it possible. So I've always looked up to those guys. And I like I said, like, the path was kind of like, you know, get on a CT and, try to go for world titles or whatever. And that was, when I was a kid, that's all I wanted to do. And I don't know, I mean, that would still be awesome. But, big wave surfing kind of came in, and I guess I just enjoyed doing that more. So I guess if there was any path that I was, thinking about trying to follow, it would be Shane's for sure. Cause he kind of did that, where he was on the CT, and then was fighting for world titles, and and then he went kind of into the big wave thing as well and free surfing thing. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to do a very mild version of that.
Like thinking back to to like Shane's generation with Kelly and Machado and all those guys. I mean, surfing and skating for that matter, and snowboarding, there's such like an aggro, rough around the edges side to it, whether it's broken families or just, harsh, a-holes in the lineup. There's a lot of like that punk rock, I'm going to punch your face type of stuff in these types of sports. And you seem to really have kind of bypassed that or risen above that. Have there been mindsets or lessons that you have absorbed or ways that you lead your life that let you kind of step around that harsher side of surfing? Because when you're talking about love and passion, I completely relate that as someone who surfs very small waves and someone who loves art. How do you bypass that whole ego aggro side of surfing?
I mean, I grew up in Hawaii, so obviously I've seen my fair share of localism and all that kind of stuff. And it's just it's there's a fine line between localism and just being a complete jerk. And like when I go to other people's spots, I always just try to have as much respect for them as possible. And I just hope that when they come to Hawaii and stuff, they have the same. And I definitely don't feel like the kind of person to go up and punch someone in the face unless I absolutely have to, if I'm like fighting for my family or something like that. But yeah, I don't know, I guess my generation kind of skipped that a little bit. I think with guys that were kind of older than me, they kind of had that a lot more. And now I feel like localism is it's still around, and but it's still definitely a lot more mild than it was when you say maybe Shane was a kid or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess what it kind of comes down to is like when we were talking about role models, like looking up to someone and seeing them, seeing someone burn them or someone not be nice to them and or whatever, and they are just kind of like whatever, man, like what I mean, like not reacting in that sense, but obviously holding your own and having a line. And if anyone crosses it, then you have to kind of be violent. But I guess I just looked up to guys that were just way nicer in that sense.
Yeah.
And weren't like looking for fights. They were just looking to try to catch the best waves. That was always kind of like, I wanted, even as a kid, I was always like, I want my surfing to do the talking. Like, I don't want to force, I don't know, violence on people or whatever. It's not something I'm into, but obviously if someone's, being really a dick, you should, sometimes put them in check for sure. And, I don't usually throw down anymore, but I have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
you've held your own
I've
now,
gotten to that point. Yeah, you have to hold your own.
Sure.
Because that's just how it is. And, but yeah, no, I definitely never go out there looking for a fight. And I guess my anger or whatever that I do have, I just put it towards trying to surf better and compete better and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't think fighting over waves is very necessary. I think when someone does something that could put someone else's life in danger, I think that's a little different. But as far as fighting over a head high wave somewhere, it doesn't seem practical to me. Like,
right.
But if someone's being an absolute kook and throws his board over and almost kills someone or someone almost gets hurt, then I think something needs to be said for sure.
So what about when competition is at play? Like, clearly you must have that side of you that's like, I'm going to freaking kick your ass, whether it's literally or whether it's like, I'm going to, beat you in this heat. Are there like different sides of Torrey? Like, is the competition side of you the same Torrey that's out in like 40, 50 foot waves? Or do you find that like one of those sides of you is a side of you that maybe either you're prouder of or is more true to who you see yourself as being?
Um, well, I'm a Gemini, so I guess I have a
Okay.
lot of sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. No, for sure, it's definitely different. But like, I've never really kind of done well with singling out someone in the heat and be like, I'm gonna beat you or whatever. It never kind of that never really worked out for me very well. It was always kind of like getting myself ready the best way possible, you know? So it was always kind of like, all right, Tori, you need to do this and not focus on what's going on over there and focus completely 100% on yourself because that's what it takes to win contests. You know, these guys are, I mean, obviously, I'm sure they have grudges. They're like, oh, I want to beat this guy. You beat me in the last one. That goes through your mind, obviously. But at the same time, it's not something that I'm like, oh, all I want to do is beat this one guy because there's two other guys I got to beat too, you know, unless it's a man on man heat. So yeah, it's always just kind of, it's all self. Um, it's, you know, it's, you have to be really selfish and just completely focus on you.
Yeah.
I think that has worked the best for me. You know, they have so many thoughts going through your brain when you compete, you know, like there's self doubt, there's how, you know, your equipment, there's what the day, you know, what is happening that day. There's just so many little things that,
Yeah, who has space in their mind for it? Yeah.
yeah. So it's like you don't even have time to, for me, I don't really have time to focus on other people.
Yeah.
You know, I see who's in my heat and I'm like, oh, that's going to be a hard heat because every heat's hard and anyone can beat anyone. So that's the way it is. And, yeah, so I'm never really singling out someone.
Yeah.
And, but that being said, like you do get angry in heat for sure. Like, you know, someone does something, you're like, oh, then I guess that's when you would single out someone the most. You know, someone paddles around you or takes priority from you, or I don't know. That, you know, it's kind of like you get irritated and you're like, oh, I want to beat
Yeah.
this guy.
I
Yeah.
would
So
imagine I've never competed in surfing, but I would imagine I would guess that competing is probably more about the maneuver and the style rather than the feeling. I think I would assume that riding big waves, as you said, was more about the feeling. Would you say that competing is more about just the art form or just about landing the maneuver, or is it also about the feeling for you at that point?
no, it's definitely a feeling too. Yeah, and you know, big wave surfing and competing, they're very, and for me, everyone's different, obviously. I mean, I'm sure there's some guys that have that killer instinct that just wants to go out and destroy people. But for me, it was always going out and trying to destroy waves and focusing on myself completely. Because when I focus on other people, I never perform my best. And so, as far as like the mindset with big wave surfing and competing, I always felt like it was very similar for me. Obviously, I want to say it was almost a little more chill for big wave surfing because I'd be out there with my friends and we'd be laughing about stuff and I don't know, I for some reason I like to joke around and I mean I don't know if you saw our film Nervous Laughter. It's kind of like a big wave documentary that we did. Anyway, and that's kind of like kind of defines a lot of us. Like,
Is that the one we saw in the summer with Adam outside of the surf
Was
shop?
that a Sanuk one or no?
no, it's a
Different
different
one.
one. It's
Okay.
actually just like a big wave documentary. It
Okay.
Oh,
was
okay.
actually all a documentary on that year that I was telling you about in 15 and 16. And it's just a documentary on Jaws and big
Okay.
wave surfing. And it
We'll
kind of
check it out.
follows around a couple guys. Albie Lair is one of them, Billy Kemper, Kai Lenny, Dage O'Connell, and myself are. But it kind of follows around everything in the big wave surfing, just what happened that year and how much of a amazing year that was. And so anyway, but yeah, coming back to the feeling, I feel like when we're out in the lineup and I'm with some of my best friends, I am laughing
Yeah.
and like joking around about stuff and that always kind of takes the tension off for me for some reason.
Yeah.
And where in a heat, it's like you talk to guys a little bit, but it's different because you're kind of like, oh, I got to get the score. I got to get this wave. I only have this much time. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's the same, but different. I almost want to say that sometimes I feel like I'm more stressed out in the heat than I am when I surf big waves. I feel like when I'm the most stressed out when I surf big waves is when I'm sitting at the cliff and I'm looking at it, I'm looking and seeing how big it is and how scary it looks. And I'm like, dang, that looks nuts. That's when I'm my most scared. But once I get in the water, and it kind of comes back to that comfort zone that we were talking about. Like, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but it seems like you always kind of come back to being a child in a sense in life. And, like what I'm saying right now is like, I kind of came back to that comfort level. Once I hit the water, it's like, all my emotions are kind of gone. Like I try to get rid of all the things that are worrying me, and the ocean just seems to wash it away. I mean, obviously I still have fear and I still have doubt and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm enjoying something, the ocean just seems to work with me rather than against me. And it kind of, I don't know. I know I'm getting kind of spiritual right now, but
I like it, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking my language, man.
All right, perfect. And this appreciation just comes, and then I don't know, when I feel like I'm appreciating everything and really taking it all in, that's kind of like when I do my best surfing in big waves, when I do my best surfing in competition, is when I really kind of take it all in, and I'm just like, man, thank you, God, I'm blessed.
It's just so funny because it's like the ocean does that for Jay and I too, but like I don't respond with my gratitude by getting on a 60-foot wave. I just want to float in the ocean.
For sure. I mean, yeah, no, I still, I still get that feeling when I jump in the ocean and swim.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I guess it's all tied in, and it's like, and it's kind of coming back to when I was a kid. Like I always felt that comfort. There was just always a comfort zone where when I got in the water or I got in the ocean or whatever, and it just always felt like I was in the right place. I was in the place I was supposed to be. And yeah, the world, the land animals are cool, but I definitely feel like I'm more of an ocean animal.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is that I was just thinking the one thing that happened for Jay and I when we became parents was we're not fearful of the waves, but we're fearful of sea creatures. But I was just thinking, like, you've kind of eliminated that for yourself because sharks aren't going to go over 60-foot waves. So you're pretty much in the clear.
Yeah, they shouldn't, right? Yeah, I don't know. Actually, there was a big shark at Mavericks the other day when there was a little swell. I think it was like on Sunday. There was a big old shark in the lineup, but it wasn't an absolutely massive.
All right, can we talk about this for a second? 'Cause people listening are going to be like, "How are you so like chill about that?"
I'm just gonna hang out with a shark. It's fine.
Like on that, so Torrey, it's like on that topic. So, do you find that death is like the thing that you would fear, or is it more like, holy shit, I don't want to get my left leg and my balls cut off by a shark, or like your face ripped off by a reef? Like, isn't it like, which one would like freak you out more? Would you rather die, or like, do you think about more like just getting disfigured or attacked? Like, where's the fear with you? Because like, there's some honor in surfing. Like when you have, when someone passes, obviously it's terrible, but there's like an honor to it. But you don't want to be that guy that like walks in like Food Lion and has like your face ripped off or your balls were chopped off.
So brutal, Jay. My God.
Yeah, for sure. I think the most brutal way for me, when I think about it, would be obviously to get bit by a shark. Would be pretty. That would just be nuts.
But you just don't think about it.
That
like you're
was
like,
what
oh,
I would
you're
just put it out of your head.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think about it. Of course. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. But like when the waves are big and stuff like that, you're definitely more focused on the waves, being massive and scary. But no, there are some waves that are just like so eerie. Like Mavericks, for instance, is just such an eerie wave. Like you can feel there's a lot of wildlife, and it's dark and it's deep, and it's the water's black, and it's they're there. And but when the waves are so big, and I guess when you have other people surfing around you too, that helps definitely, like with the fear of sharks. And I'm definitely scared of sharks for sure.
Yeah.
Like there are some guys that I know that just don't even seem like they're phased by them at all. I am totally phased by them. I think about them a lot.
Yeah.
More when the waves are small. But yeah, I totally think about sharks a lot. And just not having that, thing came up and bit you, just have no control. You don't have very much control, and I don't know. It's scary. Like I get more freaked out about sharks than probably like big waves,
like 60-foot
sometimes,
waves.
you know?
Well, it's funny because Jay, when we were out in Hawaii, like that was the one thing he left feeling so shocked about, was because the locals seemed to just like, they'd just be like, oh, look, another shark. There's a shark. There's one over there. And it was so weird. I mean, we live on, you know, the East Coast has its share too, but nothing like what you see on the West Coast. And I mean, well, I
Yeah.
guess we have some comparables here and there, but I think that's an interesting thing. Like, with people who are so comfortable in the ocean, like there's that side of it that you're just used to it and you're just going to go along with that energy. And it almost feels like they're saying like, well, if you're scared, you're going to get bit. So just relax, you know, like it's a funny thing. I don't know.
It is for sure. No, it's really funny. Yeah, it's that's why surfing's like no other sport, right?
Yeah, like not only are you going to go on a 60-foot wave, but now there's going to be like possible creatures that are like the size of a bus that could eat you. Like it's crazy.
Like imagine
Yeah,
like every time
for
you
sure.
imagine every time you went skateboarding, you had to have like wild lions running around.
I know. I always
that you
think about that.
didn't know where they were.
Right.
You have no idea where
Yeah,
they're coming from.
it's crazy. Like, what if you put a couple tigers on a football field?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it's like.
Yeah,
But,
like
yeah, for
dude,
sure.
if I had to
I
like
do
if
feel
I
like there's less sharks though when the waves are big. I don't think they like being in the area as much.
Yeah, and there's probably less
from what
other
I hear.
creatures, so then they're not cruising around looking because there's not a whole lot of creatures getting tossed.
I'm not so sure they really care, but it's good that you think that.
Have you ever seen a
I do
shark
think
just
that.
getting tossed over a 60-foot like
Well,
front
I don't think
face
they're
of a
gonna
wave?
like pull into it, but they're probably like, "Whoa, this is fun."
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they might.
No, they're
I don't
probably like
know.
these
Yeah.
fucking crazy people. Why are they going down the front of that wave?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh.
I think sharks are a lot smarter too than we give them credit for. I think that they know. I feel like there are mistakes, obviously,
Yeah.
but I feel like for the most part, like they go by Mavericks. Who knows how many times in their life, and they're like, oh, there's those guys again.
Yeah.
Like those guys. What are these idiots doing?
Yeah.
Which catching waves? Well, maybe I will take a bite of them.
Yeah,
right, dude, can we talk about like wave knowledge a bit? So you had mentioned earlier or emphasized a bit earlier about how important wave knowledge is. Is there anything that you can put into words that would improve my surfing? Is there anything that you can kind of like, I need some secrets of wave knowledge. Is there any like little class we can do right now on some things that maybe you picked up that most people wouldn't know? Like, can you spread the knowledge, brother?
I mean, what it comes down to is just surfing as much as possible. Really, wave knowledge is definitely something that it can't really be taught per se. I mean, if me and you were in the water and that'd be a little easier, obviously. But if you were paddling too hard for a wave and it broke on your back, obviously, I'd be like, hey, don't paddle for as hard. Wait for it a little bit or whatever, But yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's just really just being in the water and surfing day in and day out, and that's how wave knowledge is pretty much taught. Making tons of mistakes, and like, dude, I wouldn't even consider myself a master of wave knowledge. Like, I don't think anyone will ever be a master of wave knowledge because the waves always change. So that, you know what I mean? So it's always kind of like, that's another beautiful, difficult thing about, surfing. You got lions and coming at you, and then you got a changing freaking court.
Yeah.
So as far as wave knowledge goes, I don't think, you get good at it and you predict things, and it's just all about being in the ocean as much as possible. And yeah, if we surf together, I could definitely give you some tips on it. Or if you had some little certain things that you could pinpoint that where you're struggling with, I could probably help you with that. But like, I mean, that's like, you look at the very best surfers in the world, and they have coaches that help them with that, picking the right wave with priority. Like, that's something that, and some things are totally out of your control. Like, as far as competing goes, you can have priority, be like, dude, this wave looks sick. I need a 6 or whatever. And then the next wave is better, like that's just, it happens all the time. It happens more than it doesn't. And, so the only way to get good at wave knowledge is to be in the ocean constantly.
So
I'm still learning.
know you said you like love Jaws, but what what wave feels like home for you right now? Like, what is like your wave that you're just like, I can predict this better than anywhere else, and this feels like home?
Well, I grew up on the Big Island, so this wave that we grew up surfing is called Banyan, and it's right there in Kona town. And I guess I can, if there's any wave that I've surfed that wave more than any wave in the world, and I definitely could predict that wave a lot better than most places, definitely. And it's a reef break. I feel like reefs are a little bit easier to predict in a sense, especially when they're smaller.
More consistent.
Yeah, beach breaks are just. I still struggle with beach breaks because they're always moving. I mean, yeah, like Nazaré just blows my mind. It's just like a gigantic beach break that's huge and moving. Like I don't know how you ever get good at that. It's always changing, and that's the guys that put tons of time out there, and they do eventually figure it out and where to be. And like wow, but what a difficult thing to figure out is a huge beach break like that. Just is so much harder to me. Where like Jaws and Mavericks, they do move a lot, but they do stay in some sort of a place, So yeah, so wave knowledge it just comes with being in the water and surfing those waves. And definitely my home break that I grew up surfing and learned pretty much everything I know with surfing would be the most the most wave knowledge I have.
Yeah. Well, so, and on that note, so we're almost done, but I do want to ask you one question since we're talking about your home break. So we always ask all our guests one question, and it is, if I had to put you back in your childhood kitchen, what's the first thing you think of?
Back in my childhood kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first thing I think of is grabbing my skateboard and skateboarding down the highway to the Banyans, to the wave I grew up surfing. That's like one of the first things that would come to my brain.
Awesome.
So I'd be at the kitchen, like trying to convince my mom to let me go, even though I had homeschool to do. And like the waves are going to be good now, and the wind might come on shore, so I should go now. And then getting away with it somehow, even though I'm not that good with words, but sometimes it works out. And and I just always remembered like skateboarding, and it was kind of far too. Like it was like a solid 20-minute, 15-minute skateboard ride, and I would do it every day, and my legs would always get sore, and it was always worth it though.
So you were homeschooled? A little tangent, but you were homeschooled?
Yeah.
Your whole way?
For a few years, yeah. Okay. I went to public school as well, but yeah, in high school I was homeschooled.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I always love.
What was it?
I love seeing
sixth
people.
Grade.
Oh, okay.
Sixth grade and on. Yeah.
I love seeing people that turn out normal that were homeschooled. It makes me happy. We've always considered it for our kids. So
you're applying the Torreys normal.
I know. Well, I guess I'm guessing on that. But
thank you. I don't get that very much, so I appreciate it.
And Torrey, thanks, man. We totally appreciate you talking. This was like really cool, and we forgot to even mention like how we met. So Chelsea and I became a fan of you when you showed up at our front door
and played magnet blocks
and played
for an
magnet
hour.
blocks with our kids.
So those blocks are awesome.
Yeah, they're like they should be stress relievers. That's how they should be. Really, they advertise.
We got to give a shout out of love to our buddy Adam Walker from Sanuk for bringing us all together.
Definitely, that was awesome. Yeah, I remember we were doing the whole East Coast tour, and like, dude, we gotta go check out my friend. Like, I was like, okay, let's. He's like, he's an amazing artist. You'll love him. And we went over there, and yeah, we just kind of hit it off, huh? And your kids are just amazing, man. We had so much fun. That was like one of the highlights of our trip. We were just grinding so much the whole time, and it felt good to like be in a home and not be on the road and be with really cool people. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
That was
totally appreciate it.
And your kids were super funny. I remember just laughing the whole time. So appreciate that.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Well, thank you very much, Torrey. We will put all of your links and info in the show notes, but is there anything you want to add about what's coming up for you or where people should look up? Like, do you have any new movies or anything like that going on?
Nothing really right now. Just kind of, just kind of chasing swells. We're kind of at the end of winter here. So, so it might slow down and kind of start to move to other places around the world. So, it'll be winter in Australia. So maybe head over there or whatnot and Yeah.
Do you want to give some love to your sponsors or?
Sponsors.
Or
should we give a shout out?
Of course. Yeah, of course. O'Neill, everyone at O'Neill and Sanuk, and just everyone that supported me.
Awesome.
Yeah, so those
Cool. We'll
those
put
guys
links
have
for
been.
everyone.
Sanuk has been absolutely amazing. I've been with him since I was 12 years old, so I'm
love
30
Sanuk
now,
for
so it's
sure.
pretty
We
amazing.
do too. I know. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Torrey. Good luck with your pup.
Yeah,
and...
hope your dog's okay, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go check on her right now.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Awesome,
thank
brother.
you guys
Talk
for
to
all
you
the
soon.
prayers and love. Appreciate it.
Torrey Meister, huh?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I was saying in my intro is that I think he finally brought it full circle for me, because the only thing I can relate to in all of this is that the ocean feels really safe and home. And I guess I understand how.
My bed feels really safe and home, but I'm not going to throw it off a house.
No, I know. And I don't think that I feel as safe as he does, but I think I could understand why if I trust the ocean so much, and if when I'm in it from the time I'm a baby, feel like it's the safest place for me to be, then maybe trusting it to not kill me when I'm going over the edge of a 60-foot wave.
I want to feel that safe.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, I don't either.
Same with rock climbing. Like I would love to want to do what Alex Honnold does. Yeah. But I don't actually want to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We put in the show notes some of his biggest falls and some of his biggest wins, and you guys have to watch the videos because it's completely insane. Like him on Jaws and Backdoor, and I mean it's just crazy.
Yeah, like if you guys aren't familiar with these specific waves, you need to look it up. Like just go on his Instagram or just Google his name, and if you do know these waves, then you know how absolutely mind-boggling and impressive it is that he could do this.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting the more and more surfers we're seeing that are going from the competitive route to realizing they can make a living doing just what they love is a pretty cool thing.
I really, really love that aspect of it because I feel like if I had the balls and skills to do that, I would rather take this route than the competitive route because I've never felt comfortable with that, like just punk rock, punch you in the face sort of thing that skating and surfing have. It's like a very ingrained part of the culture.
Yeah, it is funny because he was like, you have to have a little bit of that. Yeah. Even you
have to hold your own.
Gentle and yeah, I know, it's so funny.
You have to hold your own, but I hate that part of it. And it seems like the guys that do what Torrey does, there's more camaraderie because there's less to prove.
Yeah.
Like the only thing to prove is, hey, I'm alive still. Great.
God, so nuts. I mean, literally on a 4-foot wave, I feel like I'm going to die when I fall off of it. So I just don't understand.
I think when I've gone out in bigger swells that I've been in, like hurricane swells, it's it's like a mini ramp for him compared to what he does. And those double overhead days that I would pray and be terrified, he's is just
5 times
no
that.
biggie. Yeah, that's really crazy to think about.
So I feel like even just seeing the heaviness of that wave, even if you don't see videos of him on it, it's worth a shot just watching. And what's his name? Aaron. I never remember his last name. Who's the guy that did the Jaws, the biggest wave of the year that he was talking about?
Aaron Gold, I believe.
Aaron Gold, maybe.
Is that?
I don't know. I'm gonna have
wrong.
I'll put the clip for that in the show notes because that's pretty impressive. Also,
I like that you brought up the fact that I do mention that thing of what's the big wave equivalent towards what I'm doing because he kept saying I kept trying to figure out what his motivation was, and he was the feeling. I'm like, there is no feeling that is worth taking that sort of risk to me.
Yeah,
painting or I don't know.
Yeah,
eating Chinese food, nothing is worth that sort of. There's no feeling that's worth going on a 60-foot wave. But I'm super stoked that people like him do it because I'm fascinated by it. It's so inspiring.
Yeah. It's like telling someone you can have an orgasm every day at work, but you have
but you might die.
You might die.
You might. So here's an inflation vest.
There might be a shark there to eat you, and it's so crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, I'm a monk from now on.
Holy crap!
I hope our kids don't get the wrong idea with thinking this is okay.
I know. Well, it's so fascinating because they're such fans of Torrey's. They adore him, and just them watching that video that day, I was almost let's not watch. It almost worries me. I feel like Judah has that in him to be I'm just gonna try it and see what happens, and it's really scary. That mom, this is when you not that I'm old, but I'm a mom. You can tell I'm a mom because that side of me is always what if my kids do this?
Yeah, speaking of kids, or Judith's yelling in the background.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, you guys, I hope you enjoyed every second of this one. I feel like we want to keep coming back to the surf skate side of ourselves and really exposing what it's like to try to make a career out of this type of alternative lifestyle. Like, it's very alternative, and it's very like, how the hell are you going to survive doing it when you just find something you love and you want to make money at it? And I feel like that's a balance we're all kind of looking for, is like, I love this thing. Should I make it a job? And seeing him like sort of pivot through that. And it's almost like the annoying side of it. Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I love. And if someone wants to pay me, cool. But then you realize I have to figure out a way for someone to pay me so I can keep doing it.
Yeah, that was really a fascinating aspect of it. Like how he was willing to like go into debt and all the stuff he's willing to do just to try to make it work.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Anyway, Torrey, we adore you. Thanks for this.
Love you, bro.
We will see you guys next week.
Later.
Thanks, guys. We hope you loved that episode. If you did love it and could give us some love on iTunes, that would be amazing. You can leave a review, and we will give you a shout out at some point on this podcast.
Also, if you guys can follow us on social media, we would love to hear from you. We are on pretty much every social media platform at Shifting Perceptions Podcast, which is the same as our website, shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. We look and reply to all comments, so please share with your friends, tag us. We appreciate all the love.
And don't forget that all of our guests also see all these comments, so I'm sure if you want to just have a space you can reach out, these are the places to do it. We also want to give some love to our amazing photographer that has done all of our photos so far,
Kevin Rigby.
His website is wavelightstudio.com. And
also our really good friend John Harvey, who did the music for our podcast. You can find him at Instagram at Harvey Wallbanger. So that's our little rolling credits. We will be back next week.